Hi, this is David Filippo, the left-handed right winger again, and I'm going to continue on with the next batch of awful presidents. So to follow on the tail end where we left off with Andrew Johnson, we're going to follow up with Lyndon Baines Johnson. I do not believe they're related, they're both from the South. Andrew Johnson being from Tennessee and Lyndon from Texas. And what bothers me about LBJ, well, everybody's heard you could argue some of the mess of how he handled the war in Vietnam, and the common phrase, "LBJ, LBJ, how many babies did you kill today?" Yeah, so you could say maybe he didn't really handle the war well. There's also, I don't know if it's true, but there's some questions about his involvement in the JFK assassination. If there was a personal motive, again, more of a character thing. Was he eager to see the assassination of Kennedy and move up himself, advance his own career? A lot of questions of that. And the whole Great Society, to me, is a crock. It's continuing all the things that like I will mention with Franklin Delano Roosevelt that I don't like about him. There's a lot of, I think we created a system of dependency. Rather than really help people, we created a system where people can just get a bunch of table scraps and use that to live off of, pretty much. And it's enough to get by, people use it rather than try to better themselves, because it's the easy way out. And I won't lie, like I think I've said before in other videos, there are times when you need these programs, and they are your tax money. You should use them for your benefit. It's your money. If you need them, you need them. But the problem is, when you can't get out of it, you're going to keep relying on them. And some people, it's easier just to stay on them and not bother. So we create a dependency system, and that's pretty much all it was. It's just a system of handouts, and nothing kind of bring back to the economy, get people back to work, get people to be self-sufficient, take care of it. There's none of that. And his whole mindset of and I wish more people could see this. Of how much a real racist he was. I mean, he pretty much used black people. I mean, and if you, at least the way I see it, it looks like he thought that he could, and he even said these words. He said, "I'll have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years." And pretty much he was using the fact that there were still many that were struggling, trying to get up in the world themselves. And he decided to take taxpayer money and to throw them handouts. And some of them did the right thing. There's still a lot of people struggling today. I mean, can you say it? I mean, the whole point of these programs, and this is what I don't get, is supposed to help people. Why are there still so many people struggling on them? Why has the numbers gone up of people needing help and not gone down? You'd think it would boost people up, get them out, and get them moving. And I'll be the first to say I want to help people. I want people to get out of the situation they're in, make their lives better. But why is it these programs are still in place today, and it seems like more people need them now than before? Why? You'd think if they're really to help people, we would have less and less people on them and less money needed for these programs. And yeah, you could argue the population has gone up too. But it just seems like there's so much more people percentage-wise on it than there has been population growth. The numbers don't match. I mean, there's been more people added to these programs than the population has grown. So it's hard to say that it's just a population change. And I'd rather see, and I talk about too my whole idea about the universal basic income idea. I mean, if we have to, because I want to help people, I'd be all game for that in place of a lot of the stuff we got stuck with from the Great Society nonsense. So it'd be really be something to do if we could, switch over to that, because it's just in a mess. And I think the Johnson presidency is really overrated. Just a bunch of another liberal BS, trying to sucker people in for votes. Get people to hand out, vote for me. And that's really all they did. It's just using people for a vote. I mean, you're buying votes. They don't say it that way, but that's what they're doing. You could argue the same with the Republicans, I guess, too. If you're getting a tax break, oh, that's your handout. That's your incentive to buy them. And in a way, we all are. But the difference is I'm getting to keep my money. Rather, if you support those programs, you're taking that money out of my pocket and putting it in yours and everybody else's. And that's kind of the problem. It's just, when you vote for those programs, if you need them, you're voting to take money from somebody else to give it to you, rather than keep more of your own money to begin with. So, anyway, the next one on my list that's right after him, although it's kind of a given, although I know some people try to give this guy more credit, I don't think any is really deserved, and that goes to the good old peanut farmer there, Mr. Jimmy Carter. Just too many things wrong. I don't think he knew. I think he's a nice guy, and I think from what I've seen about him and learned about him in history, he definitely seems like a nice guy, but I don't think it lent itself to the needs of the office. Between his inability to take care of the recession, the gas shortages, inflation was through the roof, the unemployment was up, and of course he really couldn't handle the hostage crisis. Operation Desert Claw was a fiasco. He hit everywhere you hit. He just couldn't get it and couldn't do it right, and it just was a mess. And that's why people are anxious to get Ronald Reagan in there, which we'll talk more about him down the line. We were very blessed, especially coming from such an awful situation. Although it's funny though too, if you've been eating, if you haven't been starving for the last 4 years, and even you get a saltine. It's kind of a joke I think I'm stealing from Eddie. I think Eddie Murphy had a joke like that where you get a saltine, it's going to be the best thing you ever ate. So you can take it from both ways. So it certainly helped Reagan that way, coming from such a bad situation. But yeah, Jimmy Carter, and then Harry Truman. And I guess because Harry Truman kind of fell suit right after the New Deal of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which I'll talk about next, which is kind of ties everything back together. He just kind of rode that wave, and I don't know why people didn't see the pieces coming together. We had awful unemployment, the recession was out of control, inflation was high, and a lot of he had an idea for Truman Care, which was kind of a precursor to what would become Obamacare to some extent. It was an idea he had. So again, it's another person paving the way for that awful presidency. So I got to give him a knock for contributing to that. So Truman falls down there in a way, because I think I respect him for at the time, even though maybe if we knew more what it was, we would have done it. But his idea for the nuclear bomb. The atom bomb, as awful as it was probably the best decision at the time. So then we come up with to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who, admittedly, if you talked to me maybe even 15 years ago, I would have given him higher marks. Because I think his heart was in the right place. I think that's why even Reagan still... even though if it turned out later on he would disagree with a lot of he stood for, he had a lot of respect for him, and I do think he meant well. I think it's kind of a joke in the cute movie I like, Annie from 1982. Was a scene where Albert Finney is with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and they're, talking about the New Deal, and he goes, "The New Deal, in my opinion," and goes into a speech about his thoughts of the New Deal, and he says, "You don't think your problem's through, Franklin. You don't think it's what's going to do the economy in the long run," and it's very true. And that FDR was right too. He says people don't eat in the long run. I don't know if that was true, but it was interesting to say that in the movie. And I guess in the long run, and this goes true for Franklin Delano Roosevelt as what he did, to make sure people could eat, people were taken care of, put them back to work. Not necessarily, get them on a system of welfare, things that that Lyndon Johnson wanted. And it was really just to get people to work. Maybe working for the government, which I'm not crazy about, but at least it wasn't a direct handout. At least it was a kind of incentive to get people working. So I commend that. But realistically, if you look at the record, a lot of that stuff just, fell back on hurting the economy more, because every time he did it, we would sink, we'd pick up, and then we'd sink further into the Depression. And really, it was World War II that solved the crisis. In a way, he was smart in what he did. I mean, I guess, like someone I may talk about more with Eisenhower, the whole military-industrial complex, you could argue the whole arsenal democracy kind of played into that. But in a way, it solved the Depression. It made a lot of money for the economy, created a lot of jobs, and I think in the long run, a lot of people benefited from it. And that's why I believe it's the Greatest Generation. I'm gonna mess it up, but I know pretty much all the veterans of World War II and the families they started. They were able to do what they did because of the leadership of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, I think, and to some extent. I mean, some of the presidents later on, like I give a lot of credit to Eisenhower in the 50s, and even a little to John F. Kennedy. And we'll talk more about those a little bit later on. But so like I said, I mean, I think in the short term, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a decent president. In long term, he's one of the worst. That's why he's not at the very bottom. And still a lot of what he did paved the way for Barack Obama. So he's losing points, but he's getting some too. He's like I said, the numbers, because this is the last of this particular video, we had Obama at number 43, like again minus Grover Cleveland, it's 2 terms. Just say 43, 42 for Woodrow Wilson, 41 for Andrew Johnson, 40 for Lyndon Baines Johnson, or LBJ, Jimmy Carter for 39, which is coincidentally, he was the 39th president. No, it just kind of happened that way, the way I ranked him. And then Harry Truman is 38, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt at 37. So we'll touch more on the next one, but that's just my thoughts on those guys. We're getting better. We're getting better slowly but surely, but a little bit better here and there. Because like I said, there's some good out of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the short term. The long term is where we have the problems, and I'll give him that credit. Anyway, talk to you later.